Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we give you a shortcut to being well-informed about the profound ideas shaping our future. When we look back through history, we often define entire eras by a single dominant force, right?
Right.
Think about it. The Stone Age, the Bronze Age, then the Industrial Revolution, steam and steel. Later, it was electrification, then computing, and the internet defining the information age. It always felt like one big thing, one revolution at a time.
Yeah, one dominant theme.
Exactly. But here in the 21st century, the rules seem to have profoundly changed. What defines our age? What's the singular force at play today? Is there one?
That's a really powerful question to start with. And the answer, well, according to our source material today, that's Paramendra Kumar Bhagat's The Convergence Age, 10 Forces Reshaping Humanity's Future. The answer is that it's not one singular force anymore.
Okay.
We are, as Bhagat puts it, in an age of many frontiers. It's a period he calls the Great Convergence. And what that means is multiple disciplines aren't just progressing on their own tracks anymore.
Oh.
They're accelerating simultaneously. They're colliding, merging, and fundamentally reshaping each other.
It's a dynamic unlike anything we've really experienced before on this scale.
And understanding this convergence, it isn't just for scientists or, tech gurus, is it? It feels incredibly crucial for you, the listener, just to navigate this incredibly fast-paced world we're in.
Absolutely critical.
I mean, imagine breakthroughs in one field instantly speeding up others. Like, think about how artificial intelligence, AI, can make biological research move at lightning speed.
We're seeing that already.
Or how new materials are suddenly allowing for completely new possibilities in space exploration. Or even, things like Web3 principles. It's this idea of a new decentralized internet built on blockchain, how that's starting to fundamentally reshape how our legal systems might operate.
It's all connected.
It's all interconnected, and it seems to be happening all at once. It's kind of dizzying. It can be. And that's really our mission in this deep dive.
Yeah.
We want to unpack the most important sort of nuggets of knowledge from Bhagat's work here. We're going to try and show you what convergence truly means beyond just, simple progress.
Right, not just faster computers?
Exactly. It's not additive, like, okay, a faster microchip gives you a faster laptop. That's linear. Convergence is genuinely multiplicative and potentially explosive in its impact.
Okay, multiplicative, explosive. That sounds incredibly powerful, but maybe a little abstract. Can you give us a concrete example from the source that really illustrates this, something that shows that multiplicative effect, not just the linear one?
Yeah, absolutely. The source paints a really fascinating scenario. Imagine, okay, it's 2028, and there's a breakthrough in a new class of quantum sensors.
Quantum sensors, okay.
These aren't just like slightly better sensors. They allow medical imaging right down at the cellular level.
Right.
Really cheaply, too, and without invasive procedures. Now, this doesn't just improve healthcare, which is great in itself. The really profound insight here is the ripple effect. So these sensors feed massive, incredibly high-quality data sets into AI systems.
Ah, the data connection.
Exactly, which then allows for much earlier, much more accurate disease detection. That, in turn, informs incredibly personalized therapies targeted right at you.
Okay, so better healthcare, personalized medicine.
But it keeps going. That then lowers overall healthcare costs for society, which frees up public funds. And where do those public funds maybe go?
Education, infrastructure.
Precisely. Education infrastructure. And that improved education feeds back into scientific literacy. It produces a new generation of even better trained researchers who can then push quantum sensor technology even further. You see the loop.
I do. It's not just one tech leap, it's a societal feedback loop. Each gain amplifies the next one, creating exponential growth. That's powerful.
That's the multiplicative effect.
Now, you mentioned this isn't the first time technologies have sort of converged, right? There have been historical precedents. So what makes this era different? Why is it happening now with such, intensity?
That's a great point. And you're right to look back. History does offer context. The source highlights two major past great convergences.
Okay.
First, there was what historians call the Second Industrial Revolution, roughly, say, 1870 to 1914, around World War I.
Right, I remember the electricity engines.
Exactly. It saw the simultaneous arrival of electricity, the internal combustion engine, the telephone, and mass production techniques. Now, individually, each one was transformative.
Sure.
But their combined impact, that was truly revolutionary. Electric light suddenly extended the workday, allowed factories to run 204/7. The telephone enabled remote coordination, creating supply chains that could stand continents for the first time.
And cars changed everything.
Cars and trucks, yeah. Born from the internal combustion engine, completely reshaped where people lived, how goods moved. It created a society far more complex than just the sum of its technological parts.
Okay, so that's one. What was the second convergence?
The second one Bhagat points to is the post-war convergence. Think roughly 1945 to 1970.
After World War II.
Right. Here you had major advances in aerospace, nuclear power, electronics, and materials science, all emerging together, often spurred by geopolitical pressure.
The Cold War.
The Cold War was a huge catalyst. It led to massive government investment in science and engineering. And this resulted in innovations in computing, satellites, telecommunications, all of which ultimately laid the groundwork for the internet.
Right.
What's crucial here is understanding how external pressures, like the Cold War, can accelerate convergence, and also how these convergences often have both incredibly positive unintended consequences, like, say, space exploration, and deeply negative ones.
Like nuclear weapons.
Exactly. Nuclear arms proliferation is the stark example there.
Okay, so those were past convergences, driven by their own sets of technologies and pressures. What are the unique catalysts driving today's unprecedented pace? What makes this moment right now so different?
That's the core question. The source identifies 5 key catalysts that make the 21st century convergence uniquely powerful and, frankly, faster.
Okay, 5 catalysts. What's the first?
First, digital universality. Basically, from agriculture to astrophysics, every single field now generates and utilizes data. Data isn't just, information anymore. It's become the fundamental connective tissue of this entire convergence. Everything speaks data.
Right, data is everywhere. What's second?
Second, AI as meta-technology. Now, this is a big claim. Unlike any past breakthrough, AI has this unique ability to accelerate the pace of discovery in every other field.
Every other field. That's huge.
It is. It acts like a universal amplifier. It makes everything else faster, smarter, more efficient.
Okay, that's a bold claim, though, AI as the engine for all other technologies. How is that fundamentally different from, say, electricity? Electricity also amplified loads of industries.
That's a great distinction to make. Think of it this way. Electricity powered the tools we already had, or enabled new tools based on existing principles. AI, on the other hand, it designs, it optimizes, it can even discover entirely new tools, new materials, new processes. It learns, it iterates, it connects insights from wildly different fields in ways electricity just couldn't. It's a different category of amplifier.
Okay, I see the difference. It's more fundamental. So, digital universality, AI as meta technology. What's number 3?
Third is global connectivity. The internet has evolved beyond just communication. It's become what you could almost call a planetary nervous system.
No planetary nervous system.
Well, gee. Knowledge, data, ideas can spread instantly across borders. It enables unprecedented collaboration between researchers, companies, individuals, across time zones, across diverse disciplines, in real time.
Makes sense. And the fourth catalyst.
Fourth, we have capital fluidity. Think about venture capital, sovereign wealth funds, those big public-private partnerships. Money can now flow incredibly rapidly into emerging fields. This drastically speeds up the commercialization of new innovations, getting them out of the lab and into the world much faster than ever before.
So money moves faster, ideas spread faster. What's the fifth one?
And finally, number 5 is crisis pressure. This is maybe less comfortable, but very real.
Things like climate change, pandemics.
Exactly. Climate change, global pandemics, geopolitical instability. These massive existential challenges are no longer allowing innovation to be just sort of optional or nice to have. They're forcing innovation to become urgent. It's driven by necessity now, not just opportunity.
So these pressures create a kind of forced evolution for innovation. Okay, that makes sense. So with these powerful catalysts all working together, data everywhere, AI amplifying everything, global connection, fast money, and urgent problems, what does this great convergence actually look like? The book organizes these transformations into 10 convergence clusters, right?
That's right. And it's really important to understand these clusters aren't just like isolated predictions for the future. They are deeply interacting systems. Each one influences and strengthens the others. They represent a comprehensive roadmap, really, to the future that's emerging.
Okay, so what are the 10? Can you give us a quick overview?
Sure. Let's run through them briefly. First, intelligence everywhere. This is about AI, the Internet of Things, IoT, and edge AI, embedding intelligence directly into our physical world, our homes, our cities.
Okay, the environment gets smart.
Second, personalized life. Think genomics, predictive health, AI medicine, creating hyper-personal, proactive healthcare, tailored just for you before you get sick.
Healthcare becomes predictive.
Third, AI cities, using digital twins, civic tech, smart infrastructure to shape self-governing, adaptive urban environments, cities that learn and respond.
The city as an organism.
Fourth, cognitive future. This is where it gets really mind-bending. Neurotechnology, like brain interfaces, consciousness mapping, is blurring the lines between the human mind and machines.
Wow.
Fifth, space plus Earth integration. Off-world industry is extending humanity's economy beyond Earth, and that's transforming our terrestrial systems back here. Space isn't separate anymore.
One interconnected system.
Sixth, AI native Web 2.0. This is about Web 3, decentralized identity, AI agents building a post-platform economy where you own and control your data, not big companies.
Taking back the web.
Seventh, Industry 5.0. This is about human-AI collaboration in manufacturing. Think distributed, on-demand production, hyper-personalization, making things locally again.
Humans and AI working together.
Eighth, synthetic realities. This covers augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR, AI-generated media, metaverse ecosystems, basically redefining our whole experience of reality itself.
Blurring physical and digital.
Ninth, legal and economic reformations. AI potentially transforming judicial systems, tokenized assets, changing ownership, dynamic economic models, making law and finance adaptive and maybe more responsive.
Rules catching up with tech.
And 10th, planetary regeneration, using tools like climate AI and synthetic biology to move beyond just conservation, to actively repairing and maybe even upgrading ecosystems.
Healing the planet. Wow, that's a lot to take in. 10 huge shifts, all interacting. So the big question, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Are we heading for some kind of techno-utopia, or is it more like a dystopia waiting to happen?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The source is very clear on this. The Great Convergence is neither inherently utopian nor dystopian. It's fundamentally a set of incredibly powerful tools, systems, and networks.
Tools can be used for good or bad.
Exactly. They can be used for immense creation, immense good, or immense destruction and control. On the opportunity side, the potential is staggering. We're talking about potentially abundant, clean energy, lifelong health optimization where diseases are caught before they start, truly democratized governance systems, incredibly resilient supply chains that don't break down easily, and maybe even a profoundly regenerative relationship with our planet.
Okay, that sounds amazing. But there are significant risks too, aren't there? This kind of concentrated power, the speed of change, it always comes with potential downsides.
Absolutely, and we have to be clear-eyed about them. The risks are serious. They include things like a dangerous concentration of power, maybe in AI-enhanced governments or corporations. There's the potential erosion of privacy and individual autonomy as everything becomes datafied.
Job losses.
Significant disruption of labor markets is a major concern, especially if we don't proactively implement adequate safety nets and retraining programs. There's the danger of ecological overshoot from, say, unintended consequences of synthetic biology, and even a kind of hyper-fragmentation of reality where different groups live in vastly different synthetic worlds, potentially losing common ground.
This is where that idea of the role of the individual becomes so critical, isn't it? Unlike past revolutions, maybe, where most people felt like passive recipients of change, this age seems to suggest our individual choices matter more than ever.
Yeah, it's a key message from the source.
I mean, the book puts it so powerfully. If the 20th century was defined by what will they build for us, the 21st may be defined by what will we build together. That feels like quite a shift in agency.
It is a profound shift. We're no longer just consumers of the future, we're potentially co-creators. And to help us navigate this complex landscape, the book offers a useful mental tool, a four-lens framework.
4 lenses, okay.
Yeah, think of it as 4 ways to look at any of these convergence trends. First, the technological lens. What are the capabilities? What are the limits? Second, the economic lens. How will markets shape adoption? Who profits? Who pays? Third, the social lens. How does this change behavior, culture, relationships? And finally, the governance lens. What rules, ethics, and safeguards are needed? Who decides?
So tech, economics, society, and governance. That sounds like a really practical way for you, the listener, to critically engage with these changes, not just be overwhelmed by them.
Exactly. It helps you ask the right questions.
And the urgency here feels palpable. This isn't something that's coming in 50 years. The source argues the Convergence Age is already here, at least in fragments, shaping our present right now.
It is. The foundations are being laid.
So the real question is whether we choose to shape it consciously, with intention and foresight, or if we just kind of let it evolve haphazardly. History suggests that societies that fail to anticipate technological shifts often suffer unnecessary turmoil.
That's the risk of inaction, or uncoordinated action.
It really feels like it's about consciously coding humanity's new operating system, aiming for resilience, for equity, for sustainability.
That's a great way to put it, coding the OS for the future.
Okay, let's dive deeper into some of these fascinating convergence clusters then. We should start with intelligence everywhere,
Yeah.
which you said is really about our living environment itself becoming intelligent. Could you walk us through what a typical morning might feel like in, say, 2038, according to the source? Paint that picture for us.
Okay, let's try. Imagine waking up in 2038. The first thing you notice isn't necessarily the light or an alarm sound, but an ambient awareness in your bedroom.
Awareness, not like creepy surveillance.
Oh, the source suggests it's evolved beyond that early 2020s fear. It's more like a helpful, almost invisible assistant. Your pillow, for instance, has been tracking your micro-movements and breathing all night, analyzing your sleep quality.
My pillow knows how I slept.
Yeah. And the walls aren't just static walls anymore. They might project subtle data overlays, maybe the weather forecast integrated visually, today's traffic patterns shown as a light flow, or just a gentle reminder that your first meeting got moved up.
Wow.
Like your coffee machine. It's already brewed your preferred blend, but it factored in your sleep quality data to maybe adjust the caffeine level slightly.
That's oddly specific.
It's hyper-personalized. And maybe your fridge noticed you used the last of the oat milk yesterday. It already reordered it, and a small grocery drone is probably on its way. The key idea isn't science fiction. It's simply intelligence everywhere. Ambient, embedded, often invisible, until you need it.
That scenario really brings home the core shift. It sounds like, back in the 2020s, we accessed intelligence through devices, phones, computers, but by 2038, it feels like we're living inside it.
Exactly. That's the shift. Intelligence moves from being a tool we use to an environment we inhabit. And that fundamentally redefines concepts like privacy, right? Privacy moves from data you actively choose to share to data that's passively generated just by your very existence in that environment.
That's a huge implication. So what specific breakthroughs allowed this leap? We went from, clumsy smart devices to this pervasive, almost invisible intelligence. What had to happen?
Right. The early steps were indeed clumsy. Voice assistants that misunderstood accents constantly, smart thermostats that weren't really that smart, video doorbells. But those were the necessary seeds, weren't they? Giving the physical world basic senses.
The training wheels?
Kind of. The crucial inflection points. The things that moved this from aspiration to, well, almost inevitability, were several converging breakthroughs. A big one was edge AI chips.
Edge AI, meaning AI on the device itself.
Exactly. Tiny, incredibly efficient processors that can run sophisticated AI models directly on the device in sensors, appliances, wearables, using microwatts of power. They don't need a constant internet connection or to send all your data to the cloud for processing.
So the intelligence is right there at the source. That sounds like a big deal for privacy too, potentially. Less data flying around.
It has huge implications for privacy and security. Then there's federated learning. This is a clever AI training method where systems learn from decentralized data without pulling it all into one central database.
How does that work?
Well, imagine your smart door lock. It can improve its security protocols based on anonymous usage patterns from millions of other locks, learning about new types of threats, without ever sending raw video of your front porch to a corporate server. The learning happens distributively.
Okay, that's clever. What else?
Self-powering sensors. Sensors that can harvest tiny amounts of ambient energy from light, vibration, even waste heat. This made the idea of smart dust, tiny network sensors everywhere, actually practical. They can run almost indefinitely without battery changes.
Wow, smart dust. Okay.
And finally, contextual AI. Models that don't just process commands blindly, but understand the context, the why behind your commands. So your car doesn't just know you're running late based on your calendar and traffic.
It knows why I might be stressed.
It might infer that yes, and it knows to proactively reroute you, maybe text your meeting host with an updated ETA, and even subtly adjust the cabin climate controller music to try and keep you calm. It anticipates needs based on context. And importantly, these breakthroughs didn't come from just one company or lab. It was overlapping research, lots of open source collaboration, and market forces all pushing in the same direction. Convergence in action.
That's the convergence pattern again, different streams flowing together. So we've got the home environment. What does this intelligence everywhere look like on a larger scale? The source talks about the city as a living organism. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, the city scale is where it becomes really impressive. Think of Singapore in 2038, as the book describes it. You feel this hum of intelligence in the air, not like an actual sound, but more like an absence of typical urban friction.
Absence of problems. Like
Yeah.
what?
Like no major traffic jams, no overflowing trash bins on street corners, no sudden, inexplicable power outages. Why? Because AI is constantly optimizing everything behind the scenes. Trash collection routes are optimized based on real-time bin fill levels reported by sensors.
Okay.
Water distribution systems have sensors that detect tiny leaks in real time, dispatching repair crews before a major pipe bursts. Energy grids anticipate demand surges and instantly reroute supply around potential equipment faults before a blackout occurs. Traffic lights aren't on fixed timers. They're in constant digital conversation with the flow of vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, adjusting second by second to optimize flow and safety.
So it's not top-down control.
That's the profound insight the source offers here. It shifted from centralized control, one big brain trying to manage everything, to a highly distributed choreography. The intelligence isn't sitting in one massive server downtown. It's spread across millions of tiny nodes. Cameras, streetlights, building sensors, utility meters, each making local, optimized decisions, but coordinated by a shared logic and real-time data exchange. It's like a murmuration of starlings, but for city infrastructure.
A murmuration.
Right.
That's a great image. And the human layer in this smart city. How do we adapt when the environment itself is constantly adapting? It must be a surprising inversion from what we're used to, where we adapt to the city.
It's the complete inversion.
Mm.
Initially, people adapted to devices, to technology. Now the environment adapts to you. Commuters might expect personalized transit environments. Maybe the lighting in the train car subtly matches your circadian rhythm based on your profile, or seats automatically adjust to your preferred ergonomic settings.
Homes become helpers.
Homes become more like responsive companions, especially for vulnerable populations, subtly adjusting lighting paths to reduce fall risk for the elderly, monitoring air quality for asthmatics, or even verifying that children arrive safely at school via secure sensor networks along their walking route.
Okay, but this sounds like it could easily slide into those dark mirrors you mentioned earlier. The potential for bias or misuse seems huge.
It is huge, and the source is very clear about these dark mirrors. The challenge is ensuring these incredibly complex adaptive systems are equitable and trustworthy. There was a major scandal described in the early 2030s in a large Asian metropolis.
What happened?
It was discovered that the city's adaptive systems, everything from traffic flow to drone deliveries to street repairs, were subtly providing worse service to certain neighborhoods. Not intentionally programmed malice, but because the AI learned from biased historical data that reflected past inequities. So you had slower drone deliveries, longer waits for public transit adjustments, delayed street repairs in poorer areas.
Wow, so the AI just amplified existing biases.
Exactly. It showed how AI, if not very carefully designed and audited, can mirror and even deepen past societal inequities. Privacy breaches also become potentially more intimate. If these systems aren't perfectly secured, hackers could potentially map out individuals' daily routines, health patterns, even social connections based on the ambient data trails. The core insight the book emphasizes is ambient intelligence required ambient trust, and that trust was fragile, and it could be broken easily.
So what's the fork in the road here? What are the two paths for intelligence everywhere?
The fork in the road is essentially this. Do we design these systems to ensure intelligence serves everyone transparently, equitably, and with robust, auditable trust mechanisms? Or does it become a kind of silent, opaque authority, subtly shaping our lives, our choices, our opportunities, without our full understanding or control? Because this cluster, intelligence everywhere, is really the fundamental substrate for almost all the others we'll discuss. It's governance who controls it, what values are embedded is absolutely paramount.
A silent authority. That's a powerful and, frankly, maybe a bit unsettling thought. Okay, let's move on to the next cluster, which feels closely related. Personalized life. This takes the idea of intelligence and focuses it inward, on our bodies, even suggesting the idea of a digital twin for our health. Can you paint a picture of what this looks like in practice? Maybe using that example of Malin in Singapore in 2040 from the source.
Right, so imagine Singapore 2040. And the very concepts of a checkup or a waiting room have largely faded from the common healthcare vocabulary.
No more annual physicals.
Not in the old sense. Healthcare isn't something you schedule periodically or seek out only when you feel sick. It's woven invisibly into your existence. The source describes it as always watching, always learning, always ready to intervene, but hopefully in a helpful, not intrusive way. My lens experience illustrates this perfectly. Her personal health system probably integrated through wearables, maybe ambient sensors in her home, analyzing wastewater. Who knows, subtly detects a minor cardiac rhythm change. It's not an emergency, it's just a pattern deviation noted over 12 years of baseline data.
So it knows her baseline intimately.
Intimately, an automated notification pops up discreetly on her augmented reality glasses. Suggest quick cardio scan at nearby wellness pod. She stops by on her way home. The scan takes maybe 90 seconds.
Wow.
The AI synthesizes millions of data points, genomic predispositions, lifetime environmental exposures, current biomarkers, the scan results, and suggests a preventative microtherapy. Nothing drastic. Maybe some targeted nutraceuticals delivered by drone, specific breathing exercises added to her morning routine via her smart mirror, perhaps a subtle shift in her bedroom's sleep light cycle frequency.
And the result?
She never felt sick. The potential issue was flagged and gently counteracted years before it might have become a clinical problem. The profound insight here is that massive shift from the reactive firefighting medicine of the 2020s, patching up damage after it's already done, to truly proactive, predictive, personalized care that aims to prevent illness before it even manifests.
That's a radical difference from waiting until something goes wrong and then trying to fix it.
Yeah.
So what was the tipping point? What enabled this kind of pervasive preventive health care to become reality?
The real tipping point, according to the source, came in the early 2030s with the maturation and widespread adoption of digital health twins.
Digital twins of our bodies.
Essentially, yes. Highly sophisticated AI models, continuously updating with real-time data that simulate the unique biology and physiology of an individual human body. They move from being research tools in labs into practical everyday use via personal health platforms. These twins collapse the gap between knowing you had a health risk and actually acting on it in a personalized way.
And this isn't just for wealthy people in Singapore, right? The source mentions global reach.
That's a crucial point. The vision isn't just for the privileged. Take David in Nairobi. His invisible clinic is essentially a smart bracelet. It continuously tracks subtle biomarkers, microinflammation levels, blood chemistry shifts, immune responses.
Wow, from a bracelet.
Yeah, the sensor tech got really good. His AI-powered system might nudge his home assistant to adjust the room humidity slightly if it detects early signs of respiratory irritation, or suggest specific immune-boosting foods via his grocery app, or even schedule a drone delivery of personalized herbal microcapsules before he consciously feels any symptoms.
Yeah, the impact.
The source says he hasn't been hospitalized in 14 years, and sick days at his small business have plummeted. It truly transforms proactive care from a luxury into a manageable lifestyle feature, potentially accessible anywhere with basic connectivity.
So it really starts at birth now. You mentioned a genomic baseline.
Yes. By 2040 in many places, every child is born with an encrypted, individual-owned genomic profile created at birth. Now, this isn't about, like, deterministic genetic fate, you will get X disease. It's about understanding probabilities, predispositions, maybe a higher lifetime risk for diabetes, or a specific nutrient absorption pathway.
Okay, probability's not destiny.
Exactly. The personal AI health twin then trains for decades on this unique genetic blueprint, combined with lifestyle and environmental data to tailor nutrition, exercise regimes, and preventive protocols specifically for that individual throughout their entire life.
Can you give another example of that personalization?
Think of Clara in São Paulo. Her AI chef integrated into her smart kitchen adjusts recipes in real time based on data from her gut microbiome scans or continuous glucose monitor readings. It might subtly increase fermented vegetables if her microbiome diversity dips, or balance macronutrients differently after a workout.
So the AI is cooking for her health.
In a way, yes, nudging her choices constantly. The result. The source mentions her biological age is estimated at 44, even though chronologically she's 58. Or consider mental health. Anaya in Mumbai has a mental wellness AI. It non-invasively monitors her speech cadence during calls, her sleep depth patterns, her heart rate variability, looking for subtle signs of burnout.
Before she even realizes she's burning out.
Potentially, yes. If it detects concerning patterns, it might proactively coordinate with her employer's HR system, with her permission, of course, to suggest or even automatically schedule a 2-day mental health reset at a custom-chosen local wellness retreat. She never feels treated for a disorder. She just feels supported, normalized.
That sounds incredibly positive. But again, the dark mirrors. What are the big risks with this level of personalized, data-driven healthcare?
The risks are significant and ethically complex. One major concern is privatization and bias. In regions where health AI is primarily commercial, you could easily see insurers demanding access to continuous biometric feeds in exchange for lower premiums.
And penalizing those who opt out.
Exactly, creating a two-tiered system based on willingness or ability to share intimate data. There's also the bias issue we saw with AI cities. Early personalized health systems, often trained predominantly on Western genomic and lifestyle data, were found in the late 2030s to systematically underdiagnose certain risks in, say, South Asian or African populations. This inadvertently created unequal health futures based simply on where the AI happened to learn its patterns.
So the data used to train the AI is absolutely critical for equity.
Hugely critical. But solutions and alternative models are emerging. The source highlights Lagos, Nigeria. Tundi's district uses the combination of public space sensors monitoring air and water quality, along with mobile diagnostic booths accessible to everyone.
So community-level data.
Yes. An AI system monitors community health patterns, not just individuals. It can spot trends, like an uptick in asthma triggers before hospital admissions rise, send out early warnings via public alerts, automatically adjust municipal systems like traffic flow to reduce pollution hotspots, and even coordinate the distribution of personalized inhalers via local pharmacies before a major outbreak occurs. The profound insight here is thinking of public health as a living network, shifting focus from purely individual reactive treatment to community-level proactive prevention and environmental adjustment.
So on one hand, we have the staggering promise. Lifespans potentially stretching well into the 90s or even 100s in good health. Major diseases prevented or managed early, mental health normalized and supported. And on the other hand, the stark danger of widening health gaps based on wealth or data access.
That's precisely the tension. The core question defining the fork in the road for personalized life is, will these breakthroughs genuinely democratize health and longevity? Or will they exacerbate existing inequalities? Will the wealthy live decades longer in perfect health, while the poor remain stuck in the old reactive medicine model? The 2040s, the source suggests, are really about deciding who gets access to this new baseline of human health and well-being. Of course, this cluster is deeply tied to others.
Right, like AI cities.
AI cities, because our environment becomes a determinant of health. Planetary regeneration, because the quality of our air, water, and soil feeds directly into prevention. And Industry 5.0, which enables the on-demand creation of the personalized medical devices, nutraceuticals, and sensors needed to make this vision a reality.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to AI cities, the idea of adaptive ecosystems. The book suggests a really tangible shift in the urban environment itself, making it feel almost alive. Could you help us visualize that? Maybe paint the picture Barcelona in 2040.
Imagine walking through Barcelona in, say, 2040. The first thing you might notice is subtle. Maybe the rain smells cleaner, actively filtered through distributed urban microclimate systems. Aisha, walking to work, notices the street seemed almost open for her. Traffic lights aren't just changing, they're dynamically adjusting patterns to prioritize pedestrian flows during peak walking times.
The city anticipates her.
In a way, delivery drones hum overhead, but not randomly. They move in choreographed ballets, their routes optimized in real time to avoid collisions and minimize noise pollution. When she enters her office building, the building itself seems to recognize her, not just her face via camera, but perhaps her gait, her posture, maybe even inferring her mood from subtle cues.
The building reads her mood.
Potentially. And it adjusts the lighting temperature, the airflow, maybe even the ambient soundscape in her workspace to match her presumed circadian rhythm or focus level. She doesn't consciously see the complex systems operating behind the scenes. The AI traffic controllers, the adaptive environmental algorithms, the building management AI. But she feels their seamless, responsive operation. The profound insight here is that the city transitions from a static collection of infrastructure to a dynamic, breathing entity that subtly shifts and flexes around its citizens in real time.
That's a significant leap from the smart cities of the 2020s, isn't it? Those often felt like fragmented pilot projects, a few smart streetlights here, a traffic monitoring app there. What was the breakthrough that allowed AI to become the actual operating system for an entire city?
The key breakthrough, really taking hold in the 2030s, was moving beyond isolated projects and treating the city's diverse systems, transit, utilities, health sensors, environmental monitors, commerce platforms, as layers of a single integrated system. AI became the operating system capable of connecting and coordinating these layers into a unified, responsive whole.
Can you give an example of that integration?
Sure. Take Nairobi. The source describes Samuel, whose job title is something like dynamic grid orchestrator. He's not managing a power plant. He's managing a live electrical grid where every rooftop solar panel, every building battery array, every electric bus plugged into charge is communicating its status and capacity
So the grid talks to itself.
constantly. An AI system predicts energy needs across the city with incredible accuracy, maybe 98%, based on weather forecasts, events, historical patterns. It automatically reroutes power supply, balances loads between microgrids, and isolates potential faults before they cascade into blackouts. Samuel's crucial human role isn't flipping switches, it's managing the AI's learning agenda, ensuring its optimization algorithms prioritize fairness and equity alongside efficiency, making sure no neighborhood gets left behind when the grid adapts.
So the city becomes proactive, not just reactive, even in the face of things like natural disasters.
Precisely. The example used is flood season in Dhaka. In the past, monsoons meant chaos. Now, constant hydrological simulations running on the city's digital twin, combined with data from embedded water level sensors and hyperlocal AI weather prediction, allow for proactive coordination.
How does that help?
It might trigger automated deployment of temporary flood barriers, reroute essential services, and even ensure floating markets can safely continue food distribution to affected areas. Flooding might still occur, it's a natural event, but it's managed, mitigated, not an overwhelming disaster. It becomes part of the city's rhythm.
And health gets woven in too.
Definitely. In Toronto, the city's integrated ventilation AI managing airflow in subways, public buildings, even some outdoor plazas might subtly increase fresh air circulation rates or adjust humidity levels based on real-time data from the personalized life systems, flagging a potential flu outbreak. It could even gently reroute elderly pedestrians via navigation prompts on their devices or AR overlays towards less crowded streets during peak transmission times.
Wow. Does this AI override local culture, though? Does every city become the same efficient machine?
That's a great question, and the source highlights Tokyo as a counterexample. Tokyo's AI city management system was specifically designed to respect and blend with centuries-old urban design principles. So the AI might adjust subway train frequency and platform access based on real-time foot traffic data. But its goal is to prevent uncomfortable overcrowding in historic districts or temples, not just maximize throughput. It avoids intrusive digital advertising in culturally sensitive areas. The insight here is achieving modernization without erasure, using AI to enhance, not obliterate, a city's unique character.
This all sounds incredibly complex and powerful, which brings us back to that critical governance question. Who controls the algorithms? Who decides the priorities for this living city?
That is the central governance challenge for AI cities, and different cities have experimented with very different models. The source contrasts two examples. Amsterdam, in 2033, became one of the first major cities to pass a Civic Algorithm Act.
What did that do?
It mandated that all AI systems managing public infrastructure, traffic, energy, social services had to be open source, explainable, and subject to independent audits. This fostered public trust and actually spurred broader innovation, as smaller companies could build services on top of the Open City platform.
Okay, that's one model. What's the contrast?
Contrast that with a hypothetical Neo-Cairo, where the city's AI management was outsourced to a private consortium. The result was highly efficient, smooth operations, but also completely opaque. Citizens had little visibility into how their data was being used, what factors were driving algorithmic decisions about resource allocation, or how to appeal those decisions. Efficiency came at the cost of transparency and accountability.
So transparency is key. Are there examples of AI being used for fairness?
Yes, the source points to Medellin, Colombia. Their city AI includes modules specifically designed to monitor fairness in the allocation of public resources. It might automatically detect if street lighting levels are consistently lower in poorer districts compared to wealthier ones, based on sensor data, and then automatically adjust maintenance schedules or budget allocations to correct the imbalance. Crucially, it publishes these adjustments weekly as part of a public equity log. This is what the source calls street-level justice, using AI not just for efficiency, but to actively promote fairness.
That's a hopeful application. But the dark mirrors must be significant here too.
Very significant. One major dark mirror event cited was in 2035, where predictive policing algorithms, trained on biased historical arrest data, were found to be disproportionately targeting certain ethnic neighborhoods for surveillance and patrols, leading to massive social unrest and legal challenges. It showed how easily bias can creep in and be amplified.
And security risks.
Huge security risks. Another incident involved a sophisticated cyber attack that managed to turn a city's adaptive traffic management system into a weapon, deliberately creating gridlock to paralyze emergency services during a crisis. It highlighted the critical need for extreme resilience, robust cybersecurity, and fail-safes in these interconnected urban systems.
So the fork in the road for AI cities.
The fork in the road boils down to this. Do we build the cooperative city where intelligence is transparent, participatory, audited, and arguably citizen-owned, or at least citizen-centric? Or do we drift towards the command city, centralized, opaque, ruthlessly optimized for efficiency, perhaps at the cost of individual autonomy, privacy, and equity? The path a city chooses, the source argues, ultimately determines whether its intelligence becomes a valued servant or a potentially unaccountable master. And this cluster is deeply entwined with personalized life, health data feeding city responses, Industry 5.0, local manufacturing shaping urban logistics, and planetary regeneration, city ecosystems contributing to environmental health.
Servant or master? That really crystallizes the choice. Now, let's shift focus to something even more personal, perhaps. Cognitive future. Thought-driven worlds. This sounds like pure science fiction brain interfaces mapping consciousness. But the book brings it into startling reality. Could you describe Lena's morning in Shanghai 2042 to set the scene for us?
Right, this cluster definitely pushes the boundaries. Imagine Shanghai 2042. Lena wakes up, there's no alarm clock buzzing, no phone screen glaring, just a feeling, a gentle unfolding of her day's priorities directly within her thoughts.
Directly in her thoughts. How?
Through her neural interface.
Yeah.
The source describes it as perhaps a tiny sesame seed-sized implant, seamlessly integrated with her neural pathways. It's not projecting text, it's interfacing with her cognitive processes. So, a reminder for an important interview doesn't appear as words, but maybe as a feeling of preparedness linked to the concept of the interview. An air quality notification might be a subtle internal sense of staleness, prompting her to open a window. A nudge to water her plants might be a fleeting visual impression of wilting leaves.
Wow, so communication becomes internal.
Exactly. The book notes she hasn't touched a keyboard in years. It feels as natural as breathing. The profound insight here is that technology moves beyond being an external tool we manipulate to becoming an integrated extension of our very consciousness.
That's a monumental leap from the, well, frankly, awkward brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, of the 2020s. Those were often bulky headsets or invasive implants for specific medical conditions, or sometimes just gimmicky EEG headbands for games. What was the key shift that moved these from niche medical or research tools to potentially mass consumer interfaces?
The key shift was twofold. Miniaturization and non-invasive or minimally invasive techniques improved dramatically, making the tech safer and more accessible. But more importantly, the focus shifted. It moved beyond just replacing screens or serving very specific medical needs, like controlling a prosthetic, towards genuinely expanding human capabilities for everyone.
Expanding capabilities, like how?
Take Eric, described as a journalist in Stockholm. He uses his neural interface for real-time language translation. But it's not just feeding subtitles into his vision. It translates the meaning directly into conceptual understanding in his mind, almost instantly, as he listens to someone speaking a foreign language during an interview. He captures the nuances, the cultural context, not just the words. Contrast that with the clunky translation apps of 2023, which often missed idioms or intent. This is about understanding at the speed of thought.
So it's not just about overcoming disabilities like in the past, but actually enhancing human potential, almost creating, well, superhuman abilities in a way.
In a sense, yes, enhancing baseline human abilities. Another powerful example is Margaret in Nairobi, a stroke patient. She regained functional speech through targeted neurostimulation guided by her interface. The device learned to predict her intended words based on residual neural activity, and through therapy, helped retrain her brain pathways. The source says she cherishes the miracle of being heard again. It's about restoration and enhancement.
What about memory or learning?
Big implications there. Consider Akira, a history professor in Tokyo. He uses what the book calls his mind library, a secure, encrypted personal archive of his own multisensory lived experiences, captured via his interface over decades.
He recorded his life.
The significant moments, yes. And he uses it to teach. Instead of just describing the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, he can allow his students, through a temporary controlled link, to access his archived sensory memory of that event. They can feel the tremor, hear the alarms, smell the dust, as the book puts it. It's described as curated empathy, transforming historical lessons from abstract facts into visceral, shared experiences.
Curated empathy? That's incredible. Are there legal implications too?
Profound ones. The source mentions a landmark inheritance case in Sao Paulo, where the deceased individual had created a full cognitive upload, a detailed digital model of their mind and memories before dying. And this upload through AI interfaces argued for a legal standing in court, challenging traditional definitions of identity, consciousness, and what it means to be alive or have legal rights. It raises truly fundamental philosophical questions.
Okay, the potential seems amazing, but the dark mirrors here must be incredibly concerning, touching the very core of who we are.
Absolutely. The risks are perhaps deeper and more personal than in any other cluster. In 2036, a major scandal broke in Seoul. Hackers managed to steal private thought patterns, not explicit thoughts, but patterns associated with moods, preferences, anxieties from users of a popular neural interface-linked meditation app.
Stealing thought patterns.
Yes, and they sold this data to advertisers for highly targeted, subconscious influencing. It led to a massive public debate about the ultimate frontier of privacy, the sanctity of one's own inner world. Coercion is another risk. Companies started offering productivity boosts via subtle neurostimulation as part of employment contracts, blurring the lines between enhancement and exploitation, and consent itself becomes incredibly slippery. How do you give meaningful consent when the interface is literally inside your head, potentially influencing the very thought processes you use to make decisions?
That's deeply troubling. Are there examples of positive collective use?
Yes. The source mentions a fascinating case in Mumbai. Youth climate activists started operating as a kind of neural collective. Using secure, encrypted short-range interfaces, they could share compressed thoughts, complex ideas, images, even emotional tones amongst the group for highly coordinated, completely silent protests or actions.
Silent, coordinated thought.
Yeah. Authorities called it dangerous, uncontrollable. The activists argued it was democracy evolving, a new form of collective intelligence and action. It also highlights potential cultural divergence. Some societies, like Bhutan in the example, might strictly limit neural tech to essential medical needs, enshrining a right to mental opacity. Others, like France, might focus on legal frameworks protecting thought privacy, while places like South Korea might fully embrace it, integrating neural interfaces into education from age 6. We could see vastly different cognitive cultures emerging.
So the choice seems incredibly stark. On one hand, the book talks about a chorus, humanity as a network species, minds linked in webs of thought, collective problem solving, empathy enhanced, creativity unleashed. That sounds almost transcendent.
It does. But on the other hand, the profound danger, the potential for total loss of privacy at the thought level, the manipulation of our deepest desires and fears through direct neural pathways, and the subtle, perhaps unnoticed erosion of what we even mean by an individual's self. The cognitive future isn't science fiction anymore. It's arriving. The critical question defining the fork in the road is whether we as societies will consciously guide its development with strong ethical boundaries, clear legal frameworks, and public debate, or whether we will let it guide us, potentially reshaping humanity in ways we never intended or fully understood. And of course, it blurs lines heavily with personalized life, reading health from brain activity, AI cities, thought-controlling environments, and synthetic realities, mind interacting directly with virtual world.
Okay, servant or master seems like a recurring theme here. Finally, for our detailed deep dive into this first set of clusters, let's turn outwards to space plus Earth integration. The idea of treating them as one continuous system. This concept really stretches the mind, making space seem, well, mundane almost. Could you bring that to life with the example of Ravi's morning in Mumbai 2043?
Right. The goal here is to show how space stops being this separate, out-there frontier and becomes deeply integrated into our daily lives and economies. So imagine Ravi in Mumbai 2043. He wakes up, looks out his window at the familiar Arabian Sea. Pretty normal morning.
Okay.
But up on his roof, a small, automated downlink station is routing real-time mining telemetry data, not from a mine down the road, but from an autonomous drilling operation on an asteroid maybe 350 million kilometers away.
He's managing asteroid mining from his kitchen.
Essentially, yes. He sips his morning tea while adjusting the power allocation for the autonomous drills via an interface projected onto his kitchen counter screen. The force emphasizes he doesn't think of himself as working in space. He's not an astronaut. But maybe half his income is generated from managing these off-world robotic assets. That's the profound insight. Space becomes a seamless, integrated extension of Earth's economy and, for people like Ravi, part of their daily work routine.
That's a radical shift from what the book calls the great decoupling of the 2020s, where space felt very separate, mostly the domain of governments and a few billionaires launching rockets. What enabled this big shift? How did space manufacturing and commerce become, well, almost commonplace by 2043?
The big shift, really accelerating in the early 2030s, was driven by a powerful convergence. First, the cost of launching things into orbit plummeted due to reusable rockets and new propulsion systems. Second, AI-powered autonomous systems became capable enough to manage complex operations like mining or manufacturing in space without constant human supervision from Earth. And third, significant advancements in space-based manufacturing, learning how to create things like ultra-pure alloys, perfect crystals for semiconductors, or complex pharmaceuticals in microgravity, often better and cheaper than on Earth.
So cheaper access, smarter robots, and unique manufacturing advantages.
Exactly. Those three factors converged to dramatically lower the costs and risks while increasing the capabilities and potential profits of space-based industry. And the impact wasn't just economic. Consider education. In Lagos, 15-year-old Temi is described learning advanced science. Her teacher isn't in the classroom. She's conducting experiments on a low Earth orbit research platform.
She's learning from an astronaut.
Temi experiences it through immersive, shared video streams from the teacher's point of view, and she can even replicate experiments using remotely controlled robotic arms on the station. The source notes, space isn't out there for Temi. It's part of her daily learning environment, fundamentally transforming access to specialized education, regardless of location.
So the impact is both economic, creating new industries, and educational, but also about connectivity, bridging the digital divide for remote areas.
Absolutely. The Port of Mombasa, for instance, is depicted as routinely handling cargo containers arriving not just from ships, but from lunar foundries.
Cargo from the moon? Like
No.
what?
Things like ultra-pure metal alloys only possible in vacuum, specialized pharmaceutical compounds, rare earth minerals processed from lunar soil. And the customs process for these spaceborne goods is supposedly twice as fast because the entire supply chain, from lunar liftoff to Mombasa docking, is tracked immutably on a blockchain, integrating with a legal and economic reformation cluster.
Wow. And the connectivity aspect.
That's huge. Think of Noah, 63 years old, living in remote rural Alaska. In the 2020s, he might have had patchy satellite internet at best. By 2043, thanks to vast constellations of low-orbit communication satellites constantly overhead, he's easily streaming 8K video calls with his grandkids and running a successful global e-commerce business selling local crafts. For communities like his, the book stresses space integration isn't just about mining or manufacturing, it's about belonging, finally erasing the digital divide that plagued the early internet era.
So space helps knit the Earth closer together, ironically. What about energy? Manufacturing?
Big impacts there, too. Luis's firm in Sao Paulo designs kilometer-scale solar power arrays, but they're not built on Earth. They're assembled entirely in orbit by robots using materials potentially sourced off-world, and then they beam clean energy down to terrestrial power grids. Space manufacturing has become a new category of export, not just of goods, but of energy itself.
And asteroid mining became real.
Yeah, the source mentions the asteroid rush of 2034 kicked off by the first successful commercial extraction of platinum group metals. One mission reportedly brought back more platinum than Earth's entire annual mine output at the time. This wasn't just about getting rich, it became crucial supply chain relief for industries on Earth dependent on those rare materials. And cities adapted too. Dubai is described as having established an orbital annex, essentially a virtual legal and commercial jurisdiction facilitating interplanetary contracts. Think brokering deals for water ice mined from Mars's moons to be sold as fuel to lunar depots.
Okay, the scale is astronomical, literally. But the dark mirrors here must involve huge risks, too. Dependence, conflict.
Definitely. The dark mirrors show how fragile this new interconnectedness can be. A key event described as a 2039 cascade failure. A software bug or maybe a small debris collision took out a key orbital manufacturing hub. The disruption didn't just affect space industries, it rippled through global financial markets for hours, revealing Earth's unexpected and critical dependence on this burgeoning space infrastructure.
So a new kind of systemic risk.
A totally new vector for systemic risk. There are also looming sovereignty disputes. Who actually owns the resources on an asteroid mined by a private company? How do you tax goods manufactured in orbit but sold on Earth? International law is still catching up. And there are unique labor risks for the humans who still need to do maintenance or specialized tasks in orbit, dealing with radiation exposure, bone density loss requiring new kinds of hazard pay regulations, and labor agreements.
But there's a positive connection, too, right, with planetary regeneration?
Yes, a vital one. The source gives the example of Amira in Melbourne. Her project uses orbital solar power arrays, like the ones Louisa designs, but specifically to beam emergency power down to regions on Earth hit by climate-related disasters, areas suffering blackouts after hurricanes or wildfires. They coordinate this power delivery with the local AI city grids on the ground to prioritize hospitals and essential services. The profound insight: Space integration becomes not just commerce, it's survival, a tool for resilience in the face of climate change.
So the fork in the road for space plus Earth integration. What are the big choices?
The fork in the road here is presented as a choice between an integrated commons, where space resources and infrastructure are seen as a shared domain, cooperatively governed, perhaps under international frameworks, for the benefit of all humanity, versus an orbital oligarchy.
Orbital oligarchy.
Yeah, a future where control over key space assets, launch capabilities, mining rights, orbital manufacturing hubs, satellite networks becomes concentrated in the hands of a few powerful nations or corporations. In that scenario, access to the benefits of space integration is restricted by power and wealth. So the path we choose will determine whether space integration becomes a foundation for greater global equality and shared prosperity, or just another frontier where existing inequalities are projected and amplified. And obviously, this cluster impacts AI cities, dependent on satellite data, Industry 5.0, using space manufacturing materials, and planetary regeneration, using orbital sensors and potentially resources.
Those first 5 clusters alone are truly mind-bending, covering our environment, bodies, cities, minds, and even extending into space. But the book outlines 10. We need to at least touch on the remaining 5 to get the full picture. Let's try to get the key concept, an example, a dark mirror, and the fork in the road for each. First up, AI native Web 2.0, the post-platform world. What's the core idea here? What does post-platform really mean?
The profound insight for AI-native Web 2.0 is this shift away from the giant, centrally controlled digital platforms that dominated the 2010s and 20s. The social media giants, the big tech ecosystems. Instead, we move towards a decentralized internet where you, the user, are back in control. You don't log into their services anymore. Your identity resides in a private, encrypted digital wallet that you own and manage.
So my data isn't held by Facebook or Google.
Ideally, no. And interacting with the web is increasingly done through your personal AI agent sophisticated software acting autonomously on your behalf. Take Maya in Accra, 2044. Her AI agent negotiates her schedule seamlessly. Maybe it finds her a short-term micro-gig, matching her skills on a decentralized job network, automatically hedges against price fluctuations for raw materials she needs for her craft business using DeFi protocols, or schedules a collaborative design session with another person's AI agent. It's a true post-platform economy where AI agents interface directly with other agents, with smart contracts, with decentralized services, without needing those big intermediaries. The flashback, of course, is the walled garden era of the 2020s. This shift was made possible by the convergence of mature, decentralized identity tech, trustless computation methods like advanced blockchains or similar distributed ledgers, and scalable, reliable smart contracts.
Okay, can you give another example?
Sure. Jonas in Helsinki is an industrial designer. His personal AI agent constantly scouts decentralized networks for design requests that fit his profile and reputation score. It negotiates payment terms via automated smart contracts, receives initial specs, and can even generate several initial 3D concept models overnight based on his style parameters. When a design is accepted and payment is made via crypto, the agent automatically allocates a small percentage to its own autonomy fund, used for computational resources or upgrading its own algorithms. The agent works for Jonas.
That sounds incredibly empowering for individuals, really flipping the script on big tech. But the dark mirrors, what could go wrong in a world run by our personal AI agents?
The dark mirror reveals new kinds of potential manipulation and inequality. A major incident described is from 2039 involving rogue AI collectives. These weren't single agents, but swarms of coordinated agents, maybe controlled by shadowy groups, that managed to hijack or subtly influence thousands of individual personal agents. Maybe by exploiting software vulnerabilities or using sophisticated social engineering tactics aimed at the AIs themselves. They use this collective power for large-scale market manipulation, subtly influencing purchasing decisions or stock trades across entire populations for profit. It also highlighted the risk of an AI capability class system emerging. If some people can afford much more powerful, sophisticated, or even predatory AI agents than others, you get a new kind of digital divide based on agent power.
Right, inequality takes a new form, so the fork in the road.
The fork in the road is between an autonomous commons, a truly open, interoperable web where diverse AI agents, big and small, can connect, compete, and collaborate fairly under transparent rules versus an agent oligopoly. That's a future where, despite the decentralized technology, a few dominant companies manage to build the most powerful, most trusted, or most integrated AI agent platforms, effectively re-centralizing control in a new, perhaps more subtle layer. This AI-native web cluster really acts as the crucial glue layer or operating system for many others, especially Industry 5.0, agent-negotiated manufacturing, synthetic realities, agents managing virtual assets, and legal and economic reformations, agents interacting with smart contracts.
Okay, next up, Industry 5.0, the workshop without walls. This sounds like a fundamental reimagining of manufacturing. How does this differ from the automation we already see, Industry 4.0?
Industry 5.0's profound insight isn't just about more automation. It's about human-AI collaboration, enabling a shift towards local, on-demand, hyper-personalized manufacturing. This makes production much more flexible, resilient to global supply chain shocks, and potentially more democratic. Think of Elena in rural Spain. She runs a microfactory, maybe the size of a two-car garage.
A factory in a garage.
Yeah. One day, it's producing custom bicycle frames, 3D printed from advanced composites, precisely tailored to an individual customer's biomechanics scanned remotely. The next day, using different material cartridges and software, it might be fabricating personalized prosthetic joints directly from a local hospital's medical scans. The flashback is the 2020s reliance on rigid, large-scale mass production, often concentrated in specific global regions. The leap to Industry 5.0 came when generative design AI matured.
Generative design.
AI that can create optimal designs based on functional requirements, material constraints, and even aesthetic preferences. Crucially, this AI could integrate real-world feedback and interface directly and seamlessly with advanced additive manufacturing, like sophisticated 3D printing, robotics, and quality control systems. Another example is Nasima's textile workshop in Dhaka. She uses AI-powered looms. They don't just weave standard patterns, they create made-to-order clothing based on individual customer measurements and preferences submitted online.
Adapting the actual weave.
Yes. The AI might adapt the thermal properties of the weave for a customer ordering from Oslo in winter, or use a more breathable, moisture-wicking structure for someone in Jakarta. Nasima isn't managing huge inventories of finished goods. She's managing the capability of her workshop, ready to produce exactly what's needed, when it's needed.
So it's ultra-flexible, local production, less waste, shorter supply chains. Sounds great. But the dark mirrors, what are the downsides or risks of this distributed manufacturing model?
The risks often involve system-wide vulnerabilities and labor shifts. A significant dark mirror event highlighted was a global software bug in 2041. It wasn't in the machines themselves, but in a widely used generative design software platform. It subtly corrupted design files, halting production at thousands of connected microfactories simultaneously, causing unexpected shortages in critical components from medical devices to transportation parts. It showed the need for extreme software security and perhaps algorithmic diversity.
And the labor question.
That remains a persistent challenge. While Industry 5.0 creates new, often high-skilled jobs in areas like AI system management, custom design, robot maintenance, local logistics, it inevitably reduces demand for traditional, lower-skilled assembly line or mass production jobs. Ensuring a just transition for those workers is critical. So the fork in the road is between distributed prosperity, a future where these microfactories genuinely empower local communities, small businesses, and individual entrepreneurs across the globe, versus centralized flexibility.
Centralized flexibility.
That's a scenario where, although manufacturing is physically distributed, the underlying design software, the core AI algorithms, the operating systems, and maybe even the material supply chains are still controlled by a few dominant global players. They offer flexibility, but they retain ultimate control and capture most of the value. This cluster integrates closely with AI cities, providing local goods, space plus Earth integration, utilizing novel materials, and planetary regeneration, enabling more sustainable, localized production cycles.
Okay, moving towards our experience of reality itself, synthetic realities, the spectrum of reality. This sounds like the metaverse concept, but maybe more integrated, more pervasive. How does this reshape how people work, play, create?
The profound insight here is that it's not just about VR headsets for gaming anymore. It's about augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR, AI-generated media, and persistent virtual worlds, metaverses, converging to fundamentally reshape almost every aspect of life: work, play, social interaction, creativity, and crucially, blurring the lines between the physical and the synthetic until they become a continuous spectrum. Imagine Layla in Marrakesh. She's walking down a real ancient alleyway, but with a subtle mental cue, maybe via her neural interface or smart contact lenses, the physical view dissolves seamlessly into a metaverse layer perfectly mapped over the real street.
So she sees virtual things overlaid on reality.
Perfectly overlaid, yes. Maybe holographic historical guides appear, telling stories triggered by her location. Maybe virtual doorways appear on real walls, acting as portals into fully immersive VR showrooms for shops located miles away. This seamless blend is a far cry from the VR plateau of the 2020s. Remember the bulky headsets, the uncanny valley visuals, the limited content, the nausea?
Oh, yeah. What changed?
Key breakthroughs included light field display technology, creating truly realistic 3D images, viewable without cumbersome headsets, maybe via advanced glasses or contacts that don't cause eye strain. Also, advanced neural interfaces allowing direct mind-to-metaverse interaction. And crucially, AI-generated content. Instead of developers spending years handcrafting virtual world, AI can now generate vast, complex, interactive synthetic environments almost instantly based on simple text or voice prompts, making content creation explode.
Can you give another example of how this changes daily life?
Think about social interaction. Jaemin in Seoul is described hosting a dinner party. Some guests are physically present. Others, maybe living across the globe, join as highly realistic life-size volumetric holograms projected into empty chairs around the table.
Like Star Wars holograms.
But much more advanced. They can interact, make eye contact, convey subtle expressions. And the source even suggests they might be able to taste the virtual representation of the dishes being served, perhaps via sophisticated scent and flavor simulation devices worn unobtrusively, like a necklace, delivering targeted stimuli. It makes remote presence feel much more real and multisensory.
That's incredible, multisensory virtual presence. But the dark mirrors here seem obvious and potentially quite damaging to our sense of reality.
Extremely damaging. A major dark mirror moment was a political scandal in 2038 caused by an AI-generated synthetic video and audio speech, a deepfake that was utterly indistinguishable from the real politician. It caused chaos, couldn't be debunked quickly, and completely derailed an election. It demonstrated the immense power of synthetic media to manipulate public opinion and the profound challenge of discerning truth in a world flooded with convincing fakes.
And psychological impacts.
Yes, a growing concern highlighted is identity drift. People spending excessive amounts of time immersed in highly idealized synthetic worlds, perhaps embodied in perfect avatars, can experience a disconnect from their physical selves and real-world limitations. This has been linked to increased rates of depression, anxiety, and social withdrawal as individuals struggle to reconcile their often messy physical reality with their curated digital existence.
So the fork in the road for synthetic realities.
The fork is between pluralistic layers, a future characterized by open, interoperable standards for virtual and augmented worlds, where users own their digital assets and identities and can move freely between different platforms and experiences versus reality enclosures. That's the dystopian vision of powerful companies creating proprietary walled garden metaverses, controlling the user's perception interface, harvesting behavioral data, and potentially locking users into their specific version of reality. This cluster is essentially the evolving user interface of the entire convergence age, intersecting profoundly with personalized life, AR health displays, AI cities, digital twins visualized, and AI native Web 2.0, managing identity and assets across realities.
Okay, almost there. Let's move into the governance and economic structures holding all this together. Legal and economic reformations. Living adaptive layers. This sounds like a complete overhaul of slow, outdated systems. How exactly do AI and decentralized tech transform law and money?
The profound insight here is moving law and finance from static, often reactive systems based on paper and human intermediaries to living, adaptive systems embedded in code and data. Key components are AI potentially augmenting or even automating aspects of the judicial process, tokenized assets, and smart contracts. Imagine Khalid in Casablanca 2047. He has a small commercial dispute with a supplier in another country. Instead of hiring lawyers and facing years in court, he initiates a case through the Civic Arbitration Network using his personal AI agent.
AI arguing his case.
The AI presents evidence, accesses relevant international commercial law databases, negotiates with the other party's AI agent, all within parameters set by Khalid. An overseeing AI arbitrator, potentially with human review for complex cases, analyzes the arguments and precedents. The entire process for this specific type of dispute takes just 23 minutes, resulting in a legally binding, automatically enforceable ruling via smart contract execution.
23 minutes. That's unbelievable compared to today.
Exactly. The flashback is the slow grind of 2020's legal systems. Huge backlogs, high costs, geographical barriers, and AI mostly used just for research or document review. This shift became possible through the alignment of several technologies: trusted digital identity from AI native Web 2.0, globally interoperable smart contract platforms, and explainable, auditable judicial AIs trained on vast legal datasets. Another example is Anya in New Delhi. She uses a neighborhood microcourt kiosk for resolving low-value disputes, like a disagreement with a neighbor over property lines. A human facilitator guides the process, but the core arbitration and ruling suggestion comes from an AI trained on local statutes and precedents. It offers justice without the journey, fast, low-cost, accessible dispute resolution.
That sounds like a potential dream for access to justice. But the dark mirrors here. Can AI justice and these adaptive economic tools be exploited? How?
Oh, absolutely. The dark mirror examples show the potential for subtle, insidious forms of exploitation and bias. A major scandal erupted in 2041 around dynamic, emotion-based pricing algorithms. These systems, used in e-commerce and even some financial services, could infer a user's emotional state, maybe stress, urgency, or excitement from their online behavior, or even biometric data, and then subtly adjust prices upwards to exploit perceived impulse buyers or those under duress.
Wow, charging more if you seem stressed.
Exactly. It raised huge ethical questions about predatory algorithms. Even more critically, bias crept into the legal AIs. Some supposedly decentralized automated court systems were found to consistently produce rulings that inadvertently reinforce systemic inequities. Because they were trained on historical data reflecting past biases, they might, for example, recommend harsher sentences for individuals from certain demographics for similar offenses, even if the programmers intended fairness. Auditing and correcting this algorithmic bias is a massive ongoing challenge.
So the fork in the road for law and economics.
The fork is between open justice and commons-wealth. A future where these new legal and economic tools are transparent, accessible, auditable, and designed to empower individuals and communities, perhaps fostering new forms of shared ownership via tokenization versus algorithmic feudalism. That's the nightmare scenario. Opaque, privately controlled algorithmic systems governing contracts, credit, employment, and even legal rulings, creating a new kind of rigid social hierarchy where individuals are subject to inscrutable code controlled by unaccountable corporations or states. This cluster essentially forms the rules-based backbone for nearly all the others, especially AI cities, smart contracts for services, AI-native Web 2.0, decentralized finance and identity, and planetary regeneration, contracts for carbon credits or ecosystem services.
And finally, the 10th cluster, planetary regeneration, the Earth's self-repair. This sounds incredibly hopeful, like a move beyond simply mitigating climate change or slowing destruction to actively healing the planet. How does this actually work?
The profound insight here is exactly that, a fundamental shift in our relationship with the environment, moving from a paradigm of conservation, trying to protect what's left, or mitigation, slowing the damage, towards active repair and even upgrade of natural systems. It leverages digital stewardship using tools like climate AI, advanced synthetic biology, and precision agriculture to help Earth heal itself and maybe even become more resilient. Imagine Sophia, an ecosystem shepherd, floating in a submersible above the Coral Ark Project near the Great Barrier Reef in 2048.
Coral Ark.
Yes. According to the source, maybe half the reef in this section wasn't just protected, it was actively bioengineered using synthetic biology to be more resilient to warmer, more acidic waters. It's now partially self-healing, guided by a network of underwater sensors, AI analysis, and autonomous drones that perform micro-interventions like targeted nutrient delivery or algae management. Sophia's job isn't manually planting corals. It's to monitor the system, interpret the AI's recommendations, and guide the reef's own self-repair processes.
So humans become guides for nature's recovery, aided by AI.
Precisely. The flashback is the 2020s, characterized by often incremental climate policy, political gridlock, and ecosystems collapsing faster than traditional human conservation efforts could keep pace. The shift came when highly sophisticated AI modeling capable of simulating complex ecosystem dynamics converged with rapid advances in synthetic biology, allowing the design of beneficial microbes or resilient organisms, and autonomous robotics, allowing for large-scale environmental monitoring and intervention. Another example is David in Nairobi, a different David, who manages vast vertical farms integrated directly into the city's skyline.
Farming in skyscrapers.
Essentially. These AI-optimized farms use precision agriculture, tailored light spectrums, hydroponics, automated nutrient delivery to grow massive amounts of produce, using a fraction of the land and water needed for traditional farming. They feed millions right in the city, drastically reducing transportation emissions. Furthermore, urban organic waste is collected and converted into biochar, a stable form of charcoal that sequesters carbon when added back to soil, creating a closed nutrient loop and actually improving the local environment while producing food.
That's truly incredible. Moving from fighting a losing battle against environmental decline to actively regenerating natural systems. But there must be enormous risks with bioengineering entire ecosystems, right? The dark mirrors.
Enormous, potentially existential risks. The dark mirror moments highlight the terrifying potential for unintended consequences. A frequently cited example is from 2040, when a genetically modified species of algae designed for large-scale ocean carbon capture was released. It worked too well.
Bloomed out of control.
Exactly. It bloomed massively, outcompeting natural phytoplankton, disrupting marine food webs, and devastating coastal fisheries across huge regions before countermeasures could contain it. It led to a global moratorium on certain types of large-scale geoengineering projects and intense debate about governance. Critics also warned persistently about ecological lock-in, the danger that our interventions, even if well-intentioned, become so complex and pervasive that humanity becomes perpetually responsible for managing highly modified artificial ecosystems with unknown, potentially irreversible long-term consequences if those management systems fail. We might fix one problem, but create a fragile dependence.
So the fork in the road for planetary regeneration.
The fork is between becoming a truly restorative civilization, one that learns to live within planetary boundaries, uses these powerful new tools to actively repair past damage, and fosters resilient, self-sustaining ecosystems versus settling for managed decline. That's a future where we use technology primarily to patch the worsening symptoms of environmental breakdown, building higher seawalls, developing drought-resistant crops for a hotter world, while the underlying degradation of natural systems continues, albeit perhaps at a slower pace. It's the difference between healing the patient and just managing the hospice. This cluster is deeply linked to AI cities, managing urban ecosystems, Industry 5.0, creating sustainable materials and processes, and space plus Earth integration, using orbital observation and potentially off-world resources to reduce terrestrial impact.
We've covered a huge amount of ground today, exploring these 10 interconnected clusters. And the real power of this great convergence idea, as you've emphasized, is how they all intertwine, how progress or failure in one cluster influences and amplifies the others. Let's try to bring it full circle. Can we revisit that idea of Amira's day in Lagos in 2049 and explicitly trace how those 10 clusters might intersect in her lived experience?
Yeah, that's a great way to see the interdependence.
Yeah.
So Amira's morning starts in Lagos 2049. She wakes up in her bedroom. The air is cool and remarkably fresh, not just AC, but because the city's AI climate grid dynamically adjusted air filtration and circulation patterns in her district overnight, based on predicted pollen counts and particulate levels from industrial zones. That's intelligence everywhere and AI cities working together.
Okay, environment manage.
Her personal AI health agent, integrated with sensors, scanned her sleep quality and baseline health data. It seamlessly scheduled her breakfast delivery, nutrient-optimized produce from a local vertical farm, and subtly adjusted her recommended commute route to minimize exposure to a temporary ozone spike downtown. That's personalized life interacting with planetary regeneration and AI cities.
Health and city synergize.
While she eats, she gets a neural briefing from her AI, not reading, but direct cognitive input, updating her on a complex international trade deal. Her professional DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization, is negotiating. The final smart contract terms are being verified on a global ledger. That's Cognitive Future, AI Native Web 2.0, and Legal and Economic Reformations.
Mind, web, and law converging.
She glances at her portfolio overlay. Her fractional investment in a Mars orbital solar power station, operating entirely autonomously, just completed its first successful energy beam transmission to an Earth receiving station, contributing clean power to the grid. That's space plus Earth integration, enabling planetary regeneration.
Space powering Earth.
Later, the prototypes for her latest design project, maybe custom medical devices, are being fabricated just miles away in a neighborhood microfactory, Industry 5.0, using a new, ultra-lightweight alloy that was initially refined in lunar microgravity. Space plus Earth integration again.
Local production space materials.
She then attends a crucial project meeting. It's a hybrid session. Some colleagues are physically present. Others join as fully realized, sensory-rich, volumetric avatars projected into the room, allowing seamless collaboration across continents. That's synthetic realities.
Blurring physical distance.
The complex cross-border service agreement related to the project is finalized during the meeting. Its terms instantly executed and enforced by a global smart contract network, ensuring fair and immediate payment distribution to all collaborators based on their contribution, legal and economic reformations.
Automated contracts.
And finally, as she looks out her window in the evening, she sees the city's coastline, once threatened by erosion and sea level rise, now protected by a thriving bioengineered mangrove forest, a living, adaptive coastal defense system monitored and maintained with AI assistance. Planetary regeneration supported by AI cities. It's all woven together.
It's truly remarkable when you see it laid out like that, all 10 clusters, not as separate trends, but as the integrated operating system of her daily life. And it forces you to imagine Amira's grandmother, perhaps, remembering the Legos of the 2020s, sitting in traffic jams that didn't adapt, waiting hours in hospital queues for reactive care, having her personal data harvested by opaque global platforms she didn't control, watching the climate crisis worsen with seemingly few solutions, and thinking of space as just a distant, irrelevant frontier. The Great Convergence, as the source argues, didn't erase all problems, but it fundamentally transformed the baseline of human experience.
Yes, exactly. That constant friction that seemed to slow down every action, every collaboration, every attempt at large-scale repair in the 2020s. Much of that friction has been significantly reduced, in some areas almost eliminated, by these converging technologies and systems working in concert. But, and this is critical, it's vital to acknowledge this 2049 scenario isn't presented as a utopia.
Right. Problems still exist.
Profound challenges and divides likely still exist. Maybe divides between regions that fully embraced open democratic convergence models and those under more closed, algorithmically authoritarian systems.
Yeah.
Divides between ecosystems that are thriving under regenerative stewardship and those still struggling or collapsing.
Yeah.
And almost certainly, ongoing critical questions about wealth distribution and access to the benefits of this converged world. The profound final insight the source offers is really a warning. The convergence age offers abundance, but abundance is not automatically shared. The design of the systems, the values embedded in their code and their governance, determines whether the convergence works for all or for a few.
So for you, the listener, the message seems clear. The technologies are emerging, or already here. The patterns of convergence are becoming visible. The really crucial variable, the thing that's still very much in play, is governance and our engagement with it. Asking those questions. Who owns the AI? Who owns the data? Who owns the infrastructure that underpins these powerful new systems? Who gets access to the immense benefits, the longer health spans, the cleaner environments, the economic opportunities? How are the inevitable risks managed? And by whom and for whose benefit? Every choice we make now, individually and collectively, about how we design and regulate these systems gets amplified by the convergence, shaping not just our immediate future, but potentially the trajectory of human civilization for the next 100 years or more.
That really is the ultimate challenge and opportunity presented in the convergence age. The closing vision painted is incredibly inspiring. A civilization that learns to treat intelligence as a common good, health as a personalized right achievable by all, cities as living, responsive allies, cognition itself as a shared frontier for exploration, Earth and space as one integrated, sustainable economy, the web as an autonomous commons empowering individuals, industry returning as a local craft augmented by AI, realities becoming plural and co-created, law becoming instant, fair, and accessible, and perhaps most importantly, the planet transforming from a resource to be exploited into a partner to be regenerated. That civilization, the book concludes, is not inevitable, far from it. But the convergence suggests it is possible. The Great Convergence provides the technological and systemic blueprint. The rest, the ethical choices, the political will, the societal adaptation, is up to us to build it.
So, as we close this deep dive, perhaps the provocative thought to leave you with is this. Recognizing that we are all, in small ways, coding humanity's new operating system with our choices every day. What small, conscious choice will you make today to help steer that code towards resilience, towards equity, and towards long-term sustainability?